Admiral Marcus Kane stood motionless on the bridge of the Defiant, his weathered face by the eerie glow of tactical displays. The scene before him was one of utter devastation. Earth's once proud fleet, comprised of the most advanced warships humanity had ever constructed, now drifted as lifeless hulks against the backdrop of distant stars. "Status report," Kane barked, his voice cutting through the tense silence. Lieutenant Commander Sarah Chen, her uniform disheveled and face smeared with soot, responded without looking up from her console. "Sir, we've lost contact with 80% of our forces. The Zha'rik Armada has breached our outer defensive line and is advancing on Earth. Our remaining ships are scattered and in no condition to mount an effective defense." Kane's jaw clenched. The Zha'rik had appeared seemingly out of nowhere 3 days ago, their massive fleet emerging from an uncharted wormhole on the edge of the solar system. Humanity's overconfidence in its technological superiority had been shattered in a matter of hours. "And the Zha'rik losses?" Kane asked, already knowing the answer. "Minimal, sir," Chen replied, her voice barely above a whisper. "Our AI-guided weapons were ineffective against their defenses. It's like they knew exactly how to counter every move we made." Kane turned to face the viewport, his mind racing. Earth had mere days, perhaps hours, before the Zha'rik would be in range to begin orbital bombardment. The advanced neural networks that controlled Earth's defensive systems had proven useless against the aliens' countermeasures. It was as if the Zha'rik had intimate knowledge of human military technology and tactics. As he stared out at the debris field that was once humanity's first line of defense, a crazy idea began to form in Kane's mind. He spun around, startling the bridge crew. "Get me a secure line to Earth Defense Command, now," he ordered. Moments later, the haggard face of Fleet Admiral Helena Rodriguez appeared on the main viewscreen. "Kane, I hope you have some good news for me. We're running out of options down here." Kane took a deep breath. "Admiral Rodriguez, I have a proposal. It's unorthodox, probably insane, but it might be our only chance." Rodriguez leaned forward, her eyes narrowing. "I'm listening." "The mothball yards at Titan," Kane said. "We've got hundreds of older model ships there, decommissioned when we switched to full AI integration. They're considered obsolete, but they're still functional." "Those relics?" Rodriguez scoffed. "They require full crews, have no neural interfaces, and their weapon systems are decades behind what we're using now. What good would they be against the Zha'rik?" Kane allowed himself a grim smile. "That's exactly the point, Admiral. The Zha'rik seem to have the perfect counter to every piece of technology we throw at them. But these old ships, they're completely off the grid. No advanced AI, no predictive algorithms, just good old-fashioned human piloting and gunnery." A spark of understanding flashed in Rodriguez's eyes. "You think the Zha'rik won't know how to counter them?" "It's a long shot," Kane admitted, "but it's the only shot we've got. We can crew them with academy cadets, reservists, anyone who can hold a stick and press a firing button. The Zha'rik won't be expecting it, and it might just give us the edge we need." Rodriguez was silent for a long moment, weighing the desperation of their situation against the audacity of Kane's plan. Finally, she nodded. "Do it. I'll send the reactivation codes for the Titan yards. You have full authority to implement this operation, Admiral Kane." As the transmission ended, Kane turned to his crew, seeing a glimmer of hope in their eyes for the first time in days. "All right, people," he said, his voice ringing with determination. "Let's go wake up some sleeping giants." The cavernous hangar of Titan Station echoed with a cacophony of sounds as dormant warships stirred to life. Admiral Kane strode purposefully down the gantry, his boots clanging against the metal walkway. On either side of him, vessels that hadn't seen action in decades were being prepped for what could be humanity's final battle. "Report," Kane barked as he approached a harried-looking technician. The woman snapped to attention, her coveralls stained with grease. "Sir, we've managed to bring 60% of the mothballed fleet online. It's slow going. We're having to manually override a lot of systems that have degraded over time." Kane nodded, his eyes scanning the bustling activity below. What's our timeline? Another 12 hours at minimum, sir, the technician replied. We're prioritizing weapons and propulsion systems, but life support is giving us trouble on some of the older models. We don't have 12 hours, Kane muttered. He raised his voice, addressing the entire hangar. Listen up. I want every able-bodied person not essential to repairs to start boarding these ships now. We'll finish bringing systems online en route if we have to. As the order spread, Kane made his way to the command ship he'd selected as his flagship, the Dauntless. Unlike the sleek, AI-integrated vessels of Earth's modern fleet, the Dauntless was all hard angles and exposed gun batteries. It was a brute of a ship, designed to take a beating and dish out even more. Kane placed a hand on the hull, feeling the thrum of awakening engines. Let's hope you've still got some fight left in you, old girl, he murmured. Admiral, a voice called out. Kane turned to see a young woman in a cadet's uniform approaching, her eyes wide with a mix of excitement and fear. Cadet Zoe Chen reporting for duty, sir. I've been assigned as your tactical officer. Kane raised an eyebrow. Chen? Any relation to Lieutenant Commander Sarah Chen? My older sister, sir, Zoe replied, standing a little straighter. She sent me here. She said you'd need all hands for this mission. Kane nodded, studying the young cadet. She couldn't have been more than 20, probably pulled straight from the academy. But her eyes held a determination that matched the gravity of their situation. Welcome aboard, Cadet Chen, Kane said. I hope you're a quick study. We'll be writing a new playbook on the fly out there. As they boarded the Dauntless, alarms began blaring throughout the station. Kane rushed to the bridge, Zoe hot on his heels. The main view screen flickered to life, showing a panicked technician. Admiral, we've got incoming. Zha'rik scout ships have entered Saturn's orbit. They've detected our activity. Kane's mind raced. They weren't ready, not even close. But waiting meant certain death. All ships, this is Admiral Kane, he announced over the fleet-wide channel. Prepare for immediate departure. If your ship can fly and shoot, you're coming with us? We launch in 5 minutes. He turned to Zoe, who was already familiarizing herself with the outdated tactical console. Cadet, I hope you're good at improvising. We're about to take this fleet into the fight of our lives. Zoe's hands flew over the controls, bringing weapon systems online. Ready and willing, sir. Those aliens won't know what hit them. As the minutes ticked down, Kane watched the hangar doors slowly open, revealing the vast expanse of space beyond. Somewhere out there, the Zha'rik Armada was bearing down on Earth, confident in their technological superiority. Let's show them what these old warhorses can do, Kane said, his voice low and determined. Helm, take us out. All ships, form up and prepare to engage. The fate of humanity rests on us now. With a mighty roar of engines, the last stand fleet burst forth from Titan Station, a ragtag armada of obsolete warships crewed by the desperate and the brave. As they set course for Earth, Kane couldn't help but feel a glimmer of hope. Sometimes, the oldest tricks were the ones your enemies never saw coming. The bridge of the Dauntless thrummed with nervous energy as Kane's cobbled-together fleet approached the outer edges of Earth's orbit. Tactical displays flickered with ominous red dots representing the advancing Zha'rik Armada. Status report, Kane ordered, his eyes fixed on the main view screen. Cadet Zoe Chen's fingers danced across her console. Sir, we're detecting approximately 500 Zha'rik vessels of various classes. Their formation suggests they're preparing for a final push towards Earth. Kane nodded grimly. His fleet, if one could call it that, consisted of barely 200 ships, most of them smaller frigates and destroyers. The odds were overwhelmingly against them. Any word from Earth Defense Command? He asked. Communications Officer Lieutenant Ravi Patel shook his head. Negative, sir. We're picking up scattered transmissions, but nothing coherent. It seems the Zha'rik are jamming most frequencies. Kane's jaw clenched. They were on their own. All ships, this is Admiral Kane, he broadcast to the fleet. You all know the stakes. Earth's automated defenses have failed. We are the last line standing between humanity and extinction. Our ships may be old, but they're tough, and more importantly, they're unpredictable. Use that to your advantage. Hit hard, hit fast, and don't let up. Good hunting." As Kane finished speaking, alarms blared across the bridge. "Sir," Zoe called out, her voice tight with tension. "Zha'rik ships are altering course. They've detected us." "Here we go," Kane muttered. "Helm, full ahead. Weapons, target the nearest Zha'rik cruiser and fire at will." The Dauntless surged forward, her ancient engines roaring to life. Around her, the rest of the last stand fleet fanned out, presenting a ragged but determined front against the oncoming alien armada. The first volley from the human ships lanced out across space, a dizzying array of railgun slugs, missiles, and energy beams. To everyone's surprise, a significant number of shots found their mark. Zha'rik's shields flared and buckled under the assault. "Multiple hits confirmed," Zoe reported, unable to keep the excitement from her voice. "Sir, it looks like their predictive defense systems are having trouble tracking our weapons." Kane allowed himself a small smile. His hunch had been right. The Zha'rik's advanced AI was calibrated to counter modern human weaponry. These older, dumber systems were throwing them off balance. But the advantage was short-lived. The Zha'rik fleet quickly regrouped, unleashing a devastating counterattack. Energy beams sliced through space, carving into the hulls of human ships. Explosions blossomed in the void as vessels on both sides succumbed to the onslaught. "Evasive maneuvers," Kane barked as the Dauntless shuddered under a near miss. "Concentrate fire on their lead ships. If we can disrupt their command and control, we might have a chance." The battle devolved into chaos, a swirling melee of ships trading fire at point-blank range. What the human vessels lacked in technology, they made up for in sheer audacity. Frigates darted between larger Zha'rik ships, unleashing salvos from multiple angles. Destroyers executed maneuvers that would have been considered suicidal in any other circumstance, their human crews pushing their ancient hulls to the limit. On the Dauntless, Kane watched the tactical display with growing hope. They were bloodied. Certainly dozens of human ships had already been lost, but they were giving as good as they got. The Zha'rik formation was beginning to fragment, their synchronized movements becoming erratic. "Sir," Zoe called out, her voice filled with awe. "You need to see this." Kane looked up at the main view screen. In the heart of the battle, a Zha'rik dreadnought easily 5 times the size of the Dauntless was listing to one side, venting atmosphere and debris. Swarming around it were 3 human corvettes, peppering the massive ship with constant fire, exploiting weak points in its defense grid. As Kane watched, the dreadnought's core went critical. The resulting explosion momentarily outshone the sun, taking 2 of the corvettes with it. But the message was clear: the seemingly invincible Zha'rik could be hurt. "Send to all ships," Kane ordered, his voice resonating with newfound determination. "Press the attack. We've got them off balance. Now's our chance to." His words were cut off as a violent impact rocked the Dauntless. Sparks showered from overloading consoles, and the lights flickered ominously. "Direct hit to our port side," Zoe shouted over the blaring alarms. "Hull breach on decks 5 through 8. Weapon systems are offline." Kane gripped his command chair, his mind racing. They'd bloodied the Zha'rik nose, but the fight was far from over. As emergency crews scrambled to contain the damage, he knew the next few minutes would determine not just the fate of his ship, but of all humanity. "Reroute all available power to engines and shields," he ordered, his voice steady despite the chaos. "We're not out of this fight yet." The bridge of the Dauntless was a maelstrom of activity as damage control teams fought to keep the ship operational. Through the haze of smoke and flickering emergency lights, Kane surveyed the tactical display with grim determination. "Status report," he barked, steadying himself as another impact shook the ship. Zoe Chen, her face smeared with soot, called out from her station. "Port weapons are still offline, sir. Shields at 30% and falling. But we've managed to reroute power to the starboard battery." Kane nodded, his mind racing through potential strategies. What's the status of the rest of the fleet? We've lost about a third of our ships, Zoe replied, her voice tight. But sir, the Zha'rik, they're taking heavy losses too. Their formation is breaking down. Kane allowed himself a grim smile. The chaos of the battle was working in their favor. Without their predictive AI to guide them, the Zha'rik were struggling to adapt to the unorthodox tactics of the human fleet. Sir, Lieutenant Patel called out from communications. I'm picking up a transmission from Earth Defense Command. They're asking if we need reinforcements. A chuckle escaped Kane's lips, bordering on manic. Tell them we're a little busy at the moment, but we'll take any help they can spare. As if on cue, new contacts appeared on the tactical display. A ragtag group of civilian ships, converted mining vessels, cargo haulers, even a few luxury liners retrofitted with hastily mounted weapons were approaching from Earth orbit. Looks like we're not the only ones with some old tricks up our sleeves, Kane mused. He keyed the fleet-wide comm. All ships, this is Admiral Kane. Reinforcements are inbound. Let's give them a warm welcome. Push forward and keep the pressure on the Zha'rik. We've got them on the ropes, don't let up now. The Dauntless surged forward, her engines straining as she led the charge. Around her, the remnants of the last stand fleet rallied, forming a spearhead aimed at the heart of the Zha'rik formation. Kane watched as a Zha'rik cruiser loomed large in the viewscreen. Helm, set collision course for that cruiser. Weapons, divert all remaining power to the forward batteries. Sir? Zoe's eyes widened in disbelief. You can't mean to. Sometimes the best weapon is the ship itself. Cadet, Kane cut her off, his voice iron. Trust me. As the distance closed, the Zha'rik ship unleashed a barrage of energy weapons. The Dauntless shuddered under the assault, but Kane held firm. Steady, he commanded. Wait for it. At the last possible moment, Kane bellowed. Now, full starboard thrusters and fire everything we've got. The Dauntless veered sharply, her hull screaming in protest. Her remaining weapons blazed to life, pouring a concentrated stream of fire into the Zha'rik ship at point-blank range. The alien vessel's shields collapsed under the onslaught, and the Dauntless scraped along its hull, tearing a vast gash in its side. As they pulled away, secondary explosions rippled across the Zha'rik cruiser. Within moments, it was engulfed in a massive fireball. Cheers erupted across the Dauntless's bridge, quickly silenced as Kane barked out new orders. Don't celebrate yet. Form up on the civilian fleet. We need to coordinate our next push. As the battle raged on, a new pattern emerged. The human ships, both military and civilian, began to operate in small, unpredictable groups. They darted in and out of the Zha'rik formation, striking from unexpected angles and disappearing before the aliens could effectively retaliate. Hours passed in a blur of frantic maneuvering and desperate firefights. Slowly but surely, the tide began to turn. The once organized Zha'rik Armada was now a scattered collection of individual ships, each fighting for survival. Sir, Zoe called out, her voice filled with disbelief. I think we're winning. Kane allowed himself a moment to survey the battlefield. The space around Earth was littered with debris from both fleets, but more and more of the remaining ships bore the colors of humanity. Not yet, Cadet, Kane replied, his eyes fixed on a massive shape emerging from the chaos. Look there. As the debris cleared, a colossal Zha'rik vessel, unlike any they'd seen before, came into view. It dwarfed even the largest human ships, bristling with weapons. Their flagship, Kane murmured. He straightened in his chair, his voice ringing with authority. All ships, this is Admiral Kane. We've got them on the run, but the fight isn't over. Converge on the enemy flagship. Let's end this once and for all. As the last stand fleet rallied for one final push, Kane couldn't help but feel a surge of pride. Against all odds, humanity had held the line. Now, it was time to drive the invaders from their solar system for good. The massive Zha'rik flagship loomed before them, a behemoth of alien technology that seemed to devour the starlight around it. Admiral Kane studied the tactical display, his mind racing through potential strategies. Analysis. Cadet Chen, he ordered, his voice calm despite the tension thrumming through the bridge. Zoe's fingers flew across her console. Sir, the flagship's energy output is off the charts. Its shields appear to be significantly stronger than anything we've encountered so far. Conventional weapons might not be enough to breach them. Kane nodded grimly. And our fleet status? We're down to about 40% of our original strength, Zoe reported. The civilian ships have taken heavy losses, but they're still with us. Lieutenant Patel spoke up from his station. Sir, I'm picking up some kind of energy buildup from the Zha'rik flagship. It's like nothing we've seen before. As if on cue, a blinding beam of energy lanced out from the alien vessel, carving through space. 3 human ships caught in its path simply ceased to exist, vaporized in an instant. Evasive maneuvers, Kane roared. The Dauntless lurched to the side, narrowly avoiding the devastating weapon. All ships, scatter and regroup, Kane ordered over the fleet-wide channel. That weapon has a narrow firing arc. Stay mobile and exploit its blind spots. As the human fleet dispersed, the Zha'rik flagship began to turn ponderously, trying to bring its main weapon to bear again. Kane watched the movement carefully, an idea forming in his mind. Cadet Chen, that weapon, what's its recharge time? Zoe studied her readings. Based on the energy fluctuations, I'd estimate about 2 minutes between firing, sir. Kane allowed himself a small smile. Then we have our window. All ships, this is Admiral Kane. I need every vessel with functioning engines to prepare for a coordinated strike. We're going to hit them from all sides the moment that weapon fires again. The next few minutes were tense as the human fleet maneuvered into position, all while dodging sporadic fire from the Zha'rik flagship's secondary weapons. Kane watched the alien vessel intently, waiting for the telltale signs of its main weapon powering up. Now, he shouted as another beam of destructive energy lanced out into space. All ships, full attack. The remnants of the last stand fleet surged forward from all directions. Railguns thundered, missile salvos arced through the void, and improvised weaponry from the civilian ships joined the barrage. The Zha'rik flagship's shields lit up like a small sun as they struggled to repel the assault. Concentrate fire on their ventral section, Kane ordered, noticing a fluctuation in the enemy's shield strength. That's where they're weakest. The Dauntless shuddered as it unleashed everything it had left, joining the torrent of firepower focused on a single point of the massive alien ship. For a moment, it seemed as if even this concentrated attack would fail against the flagship's defenses. Then, with a flash of released energy that momentarily outshone Earth's sun, the shields collapsed. Cheers erupted across the Dauntless's bridge, but Kane's voice cut through the celebration. "We're not done yet," he said sharply. "All ships with antimatter warheads, target their exposed hull and fire at will. Everyone else, fall back to a safe distance." A handful of ships, including the Dauntless, launched their most devastating weapons directly at the now vulnerable Zha'rik vessel. The explosions that followed were apocalyptic in scale, tearing huge chunks from the alien flagship. "Direct hits confirmed," Zoe called out, her voice filled with a mix of awe and disbelief. "Sir, I'm detecting massive energy fluctuations from their core. I think we've triggered a chain reaction." Kane's eyes narrowed as he studied the readings. The Zha'rik flagship was dying, but it wasn't going quietly. The energy building within its shattered hull was reaching critical levels. "All ships, maximum thrust away from the flagship," Kane ordered urgently. "Brace for impact." The human fleet scattered as the Zha'rik vessel began to break apart. Moments later, it detonated in a cataclysmic explosion that sent a shock wave rippling through space. The Dauntless was caught in the blast, tossed like a leaf in a hurricane. For several long seconds, alarms blared across the bridge as the ship tumbled end over end. Then, slowly, the inertial dampeners reasserted control, and the Dauntless stabilized. Kane pulled himself up from the deck, surveying the damage. "Status report." Zoe, nursing a bloodied lip, checked her console. "Hull integrity holding, sir. We've lost engines, but life support is stable. She paused, her eyes widening. Admiral, the Zha'rik fleet, they're in full retreat. Kane moved to the main view screen, watching as the remaining alien ships fled at maximum speed, disappearing into the depths of space. Around them, the battered but triumphant ships of the Last Stand fleet held position, a ragtag wall of steel between Earth and the stars. A slow smile spread across Kane's face as the realization set in. Against all odds, they had done it. Humanity had stood its ground and emerged victorious. "Send word to Earth Defense Command," Kane said, his voice thick with emotion. "The Zha'rik threat has been neutralized. Earth is safe." As cheers erupted once more across the bridge, Kane allowed himself a moment of reflection. The battle was won, but he knew this was only the beginning. Humanity had proven its worth among the stars, and the galaxy would never be the same again. The days following the Battle of Earth were a blur of activity. As the Last Stand fleet limped back to orbit, the full scale of their victory and its cost became apparent. The space around Earth was a graveyard of twisted metal and shattered hulls, a somber testament to the ferocity of the conflict. Admiral Kane stood before the viewport in the makeshift command center on Luna Base, his weathered face reflected in the transparent aluminum. Earth hung serenely in the void, showing no signs of the near apocalypse it had just endured. "Sir," a voice called from behind him. Kane turned to see Cadet No, Lieutenant Zoe Chen approaching, her uniform crisp despite the bags under her eyes. "The final reports are in." Kane nodded, steeling himself. "Let's hear it." Zoe consulted her datapad. "We lost just over half of our original fleet, sir. Civilian casualties were high, especially among the converted ships that joined late in the battle." She paused, swallowing hard. "But Earth itself is largely unscathed. The Zha'rik never got close enough to begin orbital bombardment." "And the enemy losses?" Kane asked, his voice low. "Near total, sir. The few ships that escaped were heavily damaged. It'll be a long time before the Zha'rik pose a threat again, if ever." Kane allowed himself a grim smile. "Small comfort to those we lost, but it's something." He turned back to the viewport. "What's the status of the salvage operations?" "Proceeding faster than expected, sir," Zoe replied, a hint of excitement creeping into her voice. "The engineering teams are having a field day with the Zha'rik tech we've recovered. They're already talking about reverse engineering some of their shield systems." Kane nodded thoughtfully. The technological leap forward from this victory could propel humanity centuries ahead in development. But it also meant they'd need to be prepared for what else, or who else might be out there among the stars. A commotion at the command center's entrance drew their attention. Fleet Admiral Helena Rodriguez strode in, flanked by a group of high-ranking officials from Earth Defense Command. "Admiral Kane," Rodriguez called out, her voice carrying across the room. "The Defense Council is assembling. Your presence is requested." Kane straightened his uniform and made his way across the room, Zoe falling into step beside him. As they approached, Rodriguez's stern expression softened slightly. "Marcus," she said, her voice low enough that only he and Zoe could hear. "What you pulled off out there, it was nothing short of miraculous. Earth owes you a debt we can never fully repay." Kane shook his head. "I just gave the orders, Helena. It was the men and women of the fleet and the civilians who joined us who paid the real price." Rodriguez nodded solemnly. "And they'll be remembered. But now we need to look to the future. The Zha'rik invasion has changed everything. We're no longer alone in the universe, and we need to be prepared for what comes next." As they made their way to the council chambers, Kane's mind raced with the implications. Humanity had bloodied the nose of an advanced alien civilization. They'd proven themselves on the galactic stage, for better or worse. The council chamber was abuzz with activity as they entered. Holographic displays showed the aftermath of the battle, along with early analysis of the recovered Zha'rik technology. Kane took his seat at the table, feeling the weight of every eye in the room upon him. "Ladies and gentlemen," Fleet Admiral Rodriguez began, her voice cutting through the chatter. "We stand at a crossroads. The Zha'rik invasion has opened our eyes to the wider galaxy, and we must decide how to move forward." Kane listened as various officials and experts presented their views. Some advocated for a rapid military buildup, fearing reprisal from the Zha'rik or other potential threats. Others pushed for a more diplomatic approach, hoping to establish peaceful contact with other civilizations. As the debate raged on, Kane found his thoughts drifting to the men and women of the Last Stand fleet. They'd faced an overwhelming foe with outdated equipment and sheer determination, and they'd emerged victorious. Whatever path humanity chose, he knew that same spirit would see them through. Finally, Rodriguez turned to him. "Admiral Kane, you led our forces to victory against impossible odds. What's your recommendation for our next steps?" Kane stood, feeling the weight of the moment. His words here would shape humanity's future among the stars. "We've proven ourselves in battle," he began, his voice steady. "But we can't let that define us. Yes, we need to be prepared to defend ourselves, but we should approach the galaxy with open hands as well as raised shields." He gestured to the holographic display of Earth. "We've been given a second chance, a chance to step onto the galactic stage not just as warriors, but as explorers, diplomats, and innovators. We should use the knowledge we've gained not just to build better weapons, but to push the boundaries of science and exploration." Kane's gaze swept the room, meeting the eyes of each council member. "The Last Stand fleet was victorious because we were unpredictable, because we thought outside the box. Let's apply that same creativity to our future. Let's show the galaxy not just humanity's strength, but its ingenuity, its compassion, and its unwavering spirit." As he finished speaking, a hush fell over the chamber. Then, slowly, heads began to nod in agreement. Kane caught Zoe's eye, seeing a fierce pride in her expression that mirrored his own feelings. They had survived the crucible of an alien invasion. Now, the real work of shaping humanity's destiny among the stars was just beginning. Whatever challenges lay ahead, Kane knew one thing for certain: humanity was ready to face them head-on. 6 months after the Zha'rik invasion, Earth was a changed world. The skies above every major city now shimmered with the faint blue glow of planetary shields, reverse-engineered from salvaged alien technology. Shipyards in orbit worked around the clock, churning out a new generation of vessels that married human ingenuity with recovered Zha'rik advancements. Admiral Marcus Kane stood on the bridge of the Phoenix, the first of Earth's new Explorer-class ships. Through the viewscreen, he watched as final preparations were made for their maiden voyage. "Admiral," Lieutenant Zoe Chen called from her station. "Final systems check is complete. We're green across the board." Kane nodded, a mixture of pride and anticipation coursing through him. The Phoenix was a testament to humanity's resilience and adaptability. While heavily armed as a precaution, its primary mission was one of peaceful exploration and diplomacy. "Very good, Lieutenant," Kane replied. He keyed the ship-wide comm. "All hands, this is Admiral Kane. Prepare for departure." As the crew bustled with last-minute preparations, Kane's mind wandered to the events that had led to this moment. The victory over the Zha'rik had ushered in a new era for humanity. Nations that had once been at odds now worked together, united by the knowledge that they were not alone in the universe. The doors to the bridge slid open, admitting Fleet Admiral Helena Rodriguez. She strode to Kane's side, her eyes taking in the sleek design of the Phoenix's command center. "Impressive," she murmured. "Hard to believe how far we've come in just a few months." Kane nodded in agreement. "The Zha'rik may have meant to destroy us, but in a way, they've propelled us forward by centuries." Rodriguez's expression turned serious. "Which is why this mission is so crucial, Marcus. We need to know what else is out there. Are there other threats like the Zha'rik? Potential allies? The Phoenix could be the key to securing humanity's future among the stars." "We won't let you down, Helena," Kane assured her. He paused, a question that had been nagging at him for months finally surfacing. "Any word on the Zha'rik? Have our long-range scouts picked up any sign of them regrouping?" Rodriguez shook her head. Nothing concrete. It's as if they vanished into the depths of space. But we can't assume they won't be back. That's part of your mission too, find out what you can about them, their civilization, their motivations. Kane nodded grimly. The mystery of the Zha'rik weighed heavily on everyone's minds. Why had they attacked? And why, after such a devastating defeat, had they not attempted any form of communication or retaliation? A chime from the helm station interrupted his thoughts. "Sir," the navigator called out, "we've received final clearance from Earth Control. We're ready to depart on your order." Kane exchanged a look with Rodriguez. This was it, the moment humanity would take its first true steps into the galactic community. "Well, Marcus," Rodriguez said with a small smile, "I believe this is where I leave you. Good hunting out there, and remember, you carry the hopes of all humanity with you." As Rodriguez departed, Kane settled into the command chair. He allowed himself a moment to appreciate the significance of what they were about to do. Then, with a deep breath, he gave the order. "Helm, take us out. Set course for the Epsilon Eridani system, best speed." The Phoenix's engines hummed to life, and the sleek vessel began to move away from Earth's orbit. As they cleared the lunar sphere of influence, Kane felt a surge of excitement. They were venturing into the unknown, carrying with them the best of what humanity had to offer. "Sir," Zoe called out, a note of awe in her voice, "you might want to see this." Kane looked up at the main view screen. As the Phoenix accelerated, the stars began to blur. Then, with a flash of blue light, they elongated into streaks. The ship had broken the light barrier, using principles derived from Zha'rik technology but refined by human scientists. A cheer went up across the bridge. They had done it faster than light travel, the key to exploring the vast reaches of the galaxy. As the euphoria of the moment settled, Kane's mind turned to the challenges that lay ahead. Somewhere out there were the remnants of the Zha'rik fleet, along with countless other civilizations humanity had yet to encounter. "Lieutenant Chen," Kane said, his voice carrying the weight of command, "begin long-range scans. Let's see what's out there waiting for us." As the Phoenix raced towards humanity's first extrasolar destination, Kane couldn't help but feel a sense of optimism. They had faced extinction and emerged stronger. Now they were taking their place among the stars, ready to face whatever the galaxy might throw at them. The last stand fleet had saved Earth. Now it was time for the Phoenix and her sister ships to secure humanity's future. Whatever lay ahead, hostile aliens, new allies, or cosmic wonders beyond imagination, Kane knew one thing for certain: humanity was ready. The final echoes of battle reverberated through space, the remnants of the Zha'rik Armada flickering like dying stars against the backdrop of Earth's orbit. While the remnants of their warships drifted away, crippled and defeated, the spirit of humanity soared with newfound hope. Yet, this victory came with a cost. Earth's advanced fleets lay in ruins, and countless lives were lost. In the dimly lit command center of the spaceport, Admiral Marcus Kane stood before a holographic display, reviewing damage reports and casualty lists. His heart ached as he scanned the names of those who had bravely defended their home. The images of their ships, once formidable and sleek, now appeared as wreckage floating in space, a stark reminder of the devastation inflicted by the Zha'rik invasion. "Admiral Kane," Lieutenant Torres called, snapping him from his reverie. "We've compiled the reports on the Echo fleet. They're ready for assessment." Kane turned to see Torres standing beside a group of officers, their expressions a mix of exhaustion and determination. The Echo fleet, comprising humanity's mothballed warships, had emerged as a beacon of hope. These vessels, once deemed obsolete and stripped of their AI systems, had proven to be unexpectedly effective in the recent battle. "Let's see them," Kane replied, stepping closer to the display. The hologram shifted to show the Echo fleet, a ragtag collection of old warships. Each ship bore the scars of battle, but their resilience was undeniable. "They might not have the latest technology," Torres continued, "but their crews are dedicated, and they've adapted to our strategies. We should make the most of this." Kane nodded, a flicker of admiration crossing his face. What's the status on repairs and supplies? We're running low on critical resources. Many of these ships need extensive maintenance, and the civilian supply lines are still disrupted from the invasion, Torres said, her brow furrowed in concern. Kane turned away from the display, his mind racing. They had won the battle, but the war was far from over. The Zha'rik might have retreated, but there was no doubt they would regroup. We need to prioritize our repairs and find a way to source more materials. I want teams deployed to salvage what they can from the wreckage of our own fleets. Yes, sir, Torres replied, her tone resolute. I'll coordinate the salvage operations immediately. As the meeting continued, Kane felt the weight of leadership pressing down on him. The Echo fleet represented not just humanity's last line of defense, but a symbol of their defiance against overwhelming odds. They had proven that, even in the face of adversity, ingenuity and bravery could turn the tide. Days passed, and while Earth worked tirelessly to heal, Admiral Kane felt an unsettling tension building beneath the surface. Reports of dissenting voices echoed through the corridors of power. Some humans, disillusioned by the loss of life, began advocating for peace with the Zha'rik. During one of these discussions at the Earth Defense Council, the atmosphere was thick with debate. Kane stood at the head of the table, flanked by military leaders and politicians, his heart racing as he prepared to voice his concerns. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, his voice firm yet cautious, "we must remember that we are still at war. The Zha'rik may have retreated, but they will not forget our victory. We cannot afford to let our guard down." Senator Armada, a prominent advocate for peace, leaned forward, her eyes fierce. "And we cannot continue this cycle of violence, Admiral. We need to explore diplomatic channels. We must show the Zha'rik that we seek peace, not further bloodshed." Kane clenched his fists, feeling frustration boiling within him. "Senator, we've seen the Zha'rik's brutality firsthand. They invaded without provocation and killed our people. Trusting them now would be a grave mistake." The tension in the room thickened, and other council members began to murmur. Kane could sense the divide growing, the fragile coalition that had emerged from the ashes of war, now threatened by conflicting ideologies. "Admiral, I respect your experience," another council member spoke, "but we must also listen to the voices of our citizens. Many believe that cooperation could lead to a lasting peace." Kane took a deep breath, trying to temper his frustration. "And what if this so-called cooperation leads to our downfall? We have to remain vigilant. The Zha'rik are still a threat, and if we show weakness, they will exploit it." As the meeting dragged on, Kane felt the pressure mounting. He needed to rally his supporters, those who understood the stakes involved in their precarious situation. After the meeting, he gathered his loyal officers in the command center. "We need to prepare for the worst," Kane said, pacing before them. "I don't believe the Zha'rik are done with us. We must keep the Echo fleet combat ready and investigate any signs of renewed aggression." "Admiral," Torres interjected, "if there are factions on Earth seeking peace, we might be able to gather intelligence on Zha'rik movements through them. If they believe in cooperation, they may have contacts among the Zha'rik remnants." Kane considered her words carefully. It was a risky strategy, but it could yield valuable information. "All right, let's establish a covert operation. We'll keep our ears to the ground and assess any potential threats. But I want our primary focus to remain on military readiness." As the days turned into weeks, Kane's instincts proved correct. Reports began filtering in about small skirmishes along the outer edges of Earth's influence. Zha'rik scouts were seen probing their defenses, testing for vulnerabilities. Meanwhile, the dissenting factions grew bolder, pushing for negotiations with the Zha'rik. Kane watched as public opinion began to sway, his stomach tightening with unease. The council's debates became increasingly contentious, pitting those who sought peace against those who remembered the cost of war. One evening, while poring over intelligence reports in his quarters, Torres burst in, her expression urgent. "Admiral, we've intercepted communications suggesting that a rogue Zha'rik faction is seeking to ally with some of our human dissenters. They believe they can convince them to join forces." Kane's heart raced. This was more than just idle chatter, it could lead to disaster. Where is this taking place? In the old mining colony on Titan, Torres replied, her voice steady. They're meeting in secret. We can't let this opportunity slip away. If they form an alliance, it could spell doom for us. Kane quickly devised a plan. We'll send a small reconnaissance team to monitor the meeting. If we can gather evidence of this alliance, we can expose the traitors among us and strengthen our position. As they prepared for the mission, Kane felt the weight of responsibility heavy on his shoulders. The lives of his crew depended on the decisions he made, and he would do everything in his power to protect them. The following night, the reconnaissance team, led by Lieutenant Torres, slipped into the shadows of Titan's mining colony. They moved carefully, avoiding detection as they navigated through the labyrinthine tunnels. The air was thick with the scent of metal and dust, a haunting reminder of humanity's industrial past. Torres activated her communicator. We're nearing the rendezvous point. Keep your eyes open. If we're spotted, it could jeopardize the entire mission. As they approached the designated area, the flickering lights of a hidden chamber came into view. Kane monitored the feed from his command center, his heart pounding as he watched the small screen displaying the scene. Inside the chamber, a group of humans stood alongside Zha'rik soldiers. The atmosphere was tense, filled with whispered negotiations and cautious glances. Kane felt a surge of anger as he recognized some of the faces among the humans' politicians and activists who had openly called for peace. Are they really that naive? Kane muttered, his fist clenched. Do they not see the danger? Torres and her team listened intently as the negotiations unfolded. The Zha'rik warlord, a tall figure with sleek, armored skin, spoke with authority. We seek to unify our strength. The humans who reject war are wise. Join us, and we can eliminate those who cling to outdated notions of conflict. A human delegate stepped forward, visibly hesitant but intrigued. What assurance do we have that you will honor this alliance? Your kind has brought only destruction to our world. Your fear is justified, the Zha'rik replied, his voice smooth but chilling. But consider this. Together, we can forge a new future. Your resistance is futile. You may choose to join us or face extinction. Kane's heart raced as he realized the gravity of the situation. If the Zha'rik managed to sway these dissenters, it could lead to catastrophic consequences for humanity. Torres, we need to move in. We can't let this continue, he commanded through the communicator. Understood, Admiral. We'll create a diversion, she replied, her voice steady. As the team prepared to initiate their diversion, Kane felt a mix of anticipation and dread. The stakes were high, and the fate of Earth's future hung in the balance. On my mark, Torres whispered, signaling her team to position themselves strategically. 3, 2, 1, now. Suddenly, a loud explosion rocked the chamber, sending dust and debris flying in all directions. The Zha'rik soldiers turned their attention toward the chaos, their expressions shifting from confidence to alarm. Amidst the confusion, Torres and her team moved swiftly, taking advantage of the distraction to infiltrate the meeting. Kane's heart raced as he watched the chaos unfold on the screen. The humans in the chamber were scrambling for cover, while the Zha'rik soldiers shouted commands, their voices echoing through the rubble. Get them, they cannot escape. Torres and her team maneuvered through the chaos, their training kicking in. They engaged in close-quarters combat with the Zha'rik guards, using non-lethal force to subdue them while avoiding unnecessary casualties. The initial shock of the explosion worked in their favor, providing the perfect cover to gather crucial evidence of the alliance. Kane felt a surge of pride as he witnessed his team in action. They were fighting not just for their lives, but for the future of humanity. He could see Torres leading her squad with determination, each movement precise and calculated. The screen flickered as another Zha'rik soldier fell, their alien form collapsing against the ground. But the Zha'rik warlord, sensing the shift in momentum, barked orders to regroup. Do not let them escape. They must not reveal what they've seen. Kane knew they were running out of time. Torres, you need to secure evidence of this alliance. We can't let them cover it up. Roger that, Admiral, she responded, her voice unwavering amidst the chaos. In the heart of the chamber, Torres spotted a data terminal and rushed towards it, typing furiously to download any relevant information. The urgency of the moment pressed heavily upon her shoulders. Every second counted, and the stakes were immeasurable. The faces of her fellow crew members flashed in her mind, reminding her of what was at risk. As she extracted the data, the sound of footsteps echoed ominously behind her. Torres glanced over her shoulder, seeing a group of Zha'rik soldiers advancing, their weapons drawn. The moment froze as she weighed her options. She could either finish the download or retreat to safety. She could almost hear Kane's voice in her head, protect the mission at all costs. With a final keystroke, she initiated the transfer, watching the progress bar crawl agonizingly slow. She drew her sidearm, prepared to defend her team. Almost there, just a few more seconds, she shouted, adrenaline surging through her veins. Cover us, another team member called out as they formed a defensive line against the advancing Zha'rik. Blaster fire erupted in the chamber, the chaos with bursts of color. The team fought valiantly, but the odds were shifting against them. Finally, with a triumphant beep, the data transfer completed. Torres snatched the drive, her heart racing. "Got it! Let's move!" she shouted, turning to her team. With the evidence secured, they made their escape. The team dashed through the back tunnels, adrenaline pumping as they navigated the labyrinth of corridors. Behind them, the Zha'rik soldiers were regaining their composure and regrouping, their shouts echoing like thunder. "Admiral, we're en route," Torres relayed through the communicator, her breath coming in quick bursts. "Get to the extraction point. We'll cover you," Kane ordered, feeling a mix of pride and concern. The team's bravery had shown through, but the risk of being captured loomed large. As they neared the exit, a sudden explosion rocked the tunnel behind them, sending debris cascading down like rain. The blast had dislodged a section of the ceiling, blocking their path. "We can't go back. We have to find another way," one of the team members yelled, panic creeping into their voice. "Follow me," Torres commanded, her instincts kicking in. She spotted an alternative route, a narrow passage that led deeper into the heart of Titan. The team hesitated but followed her lead, trusting her judgment. They sprinted through the darkness, the air thick with tension and uncertainty. The sounds of the Zha'rik soldiers grew fainter behind them, but they knew they weren't safe yet. Each step echoed like a countdown, the stakes rising with every moment. "Stay close," Torres instructed, her heart pounding as they pressed forward. They reached a junction, and Torres paused to assess their options. Ahead, a faint light flickered, a sign of the surface above. "Let's go up. We need to reach the surface and signal for extraction," she decided, leading the way. The group climbed a narrow staircase, their hearts racing as they pushed forward. Finally, they emerged onto the surface of Titan, the cold, barren landscape stretching out before them. The night sky shimmered with distant stars, a stark contrast to the chaos they had just escaped. But they were not out of danger yet. They needed to signal the Echo fleet for extraction. "Admiral, we're on the surface," Torres reported, looking around for a suitable spot to signal. "We'll need to set up a beacon." "Make it quick. We're detecting Zha'rik patrols moving your way," Kane warned, urgency lacing his voice. Torres and her team hurried to set up the beacon, working swiftly under the looming threat. They could hear the distant hum of engines approaching, a stark reminder that time was running out. "Almost done," one of the technicians exclaimed as they calibrated the device. Just as they finished, the sound of approaching Zha'rik ships filled the air, their ominous shapes silhouetted against the starlit sky. Torres felt a surge of adrenaline. "Get ready! We need to hold them off until the extraction team arrives." As the Zha'rik ships descended, the team readied their weapons. They had come too far to let their mission fail now. Blaster fire erupted from the enemy ships, the night as Torres and her team returned fire. "Hold your ground," she shouted, her heart racing as she took aim. The battle had shifted from the chamber to the surface of Titan. and they were determined to fight for their survival. The extraction ship appeared in the distance, its lights blinking like a beacon of hope. "There it is. We just need to hold out a little longer," Torres shouted, firing at the approaching Zha'rik. The tension was palpable as they fought against overwhelming odds. One by one, the Zha'rik soldiers began to descend from their ships, their armored forms moving with lethal precision. But the Echo Fleet team fought back with everything they had, their resolve unwavering. Finally, the extraction ship touched down, its ramp lowering to the ground. "Go! Get to the ship!" Torres yelled, signaling her team. They rushed toward the ship, blaster fire raining down around them. The air crackled with energy as they sprinted, dodging enemy shots and returning fire as they went. One of the team members fell, but Torres refused to look back. They had to keep moving. As they reached the ramp, the pilot shouted, "Get in now!" With a final burst of energy, Torres dove into the ship, followed by her team. They secured themselves in their seats, panting heavily as the ramp closed. The pilot engaged the engines, and the ship lifted off, narrowly escaping the fire raining down from above. As they soared into the sky, Torres looked back at the surface of Titan, her heart heavy with the sacrifices they had made. They had gathered crucial evidence of the Zha'rik alliance with humanity's dissenters, but the battle was far from over. They would need to regroup, share their findings, and prepare for whatever lay ahead. "Admiral," Torres said, turning to Kane, who watched the chaos below with a steely expression. "We got the data. We can expose this treachery." Kane nodded, a mix of pride and concern in his eyes. "Good work, Lieutenant. But this is just the beginning. We need to unite our forces and ensure that this betrayal doesn't destroy what we've fought so hard to protect." As the extraction ship sped away from Titan, leaving the chaos behind, Torres felt a sense of determination swell within her. The fight for Earth's future was just beginning, and they would face it together, united in their resolve to protect their home and ensure that the echoes of valor from their recent victory would not fade into silence. They would stand strong against any foe, whether human or alien, and forge a path toward a brighter future. With the weight of their mission resting heavily upon their shoulders, they prepared to return to Earth, ready to face the challenges that awaited them. As the extraction ship sped through the void, the crew settled into an uneasy silence. The hum of the engines was a constant reminder of their narrow escape from Titan, but the gravity of their mission weighed heavily on their minds. Torres took a moment to collect her thoughts, staring out the viewport at the stars streaking by like distant memories. Once they were safely out of range of Titan and the Zha'rik patrols, the ship's pilot, Lieutenant Jax, initiated a communication link with Admiral Kane. The screen flickered to life, revealing Kane's determined expression. "Report, team. What did you find?" "Admiral, we have obtained critical data proving the Zha'rik are collaborating with dissidents on Earth," Torres began, her voice steady despite the adrenaline still coursing through her veins. "The documents indicate a planned coordinated attack that would destabilize our defenses and allow the Zha'rik to strike at the heart of our command." Kane's brow furrowed as he absorbed the information. "This is worse than I feared. We need to disseminate this information to the fleet immediately. But first, we must strategize our next move." "Sir, if we reveal this information too soon, it could incite panic among our people," Torres cautioned, mindful of the potential fallout. "We need to ensure we have a solid plan in place before going public." "Agreed," Kane said, his tone decisive. "We will convene the senior officers as soon as we return. We need to formulate a unified response to this threat." As the extraction ship glided through the cosmos, the crew felt the tension in the air, knowing that their fight was far from over. They had merely scratched the surface of a conspiracy that could tear their world apart. When they finally entered the atmosphere of Earth, the familiar sights and sounds flooded back, a mixture of relief and dread washing over them. The extraction ship touched down at a secured military base, where a team of personnel awaited their arrival. Torres and her team disembarked, greeted by the anxious faces of fellow officers. "Welcome back," one of them said, a hint of relief in their voice. We were worried about you. Save the pleasantries, Kane interrupted. We need a briefing room. Now. His tone brooked no argument. The team quickly followed him to the briefing room, the atmosphere growing heavier with each step. Once inside, they gathered around the holographic table, and Kane initiated a secure communication channel to ensure privacy. Let's hear it, Taurus, he said, gesturing to her. Taking a deep breath, she began her presentation, detailing the findings from Titan. The holographic display flickered to life, showcasing the data and images they had secured, highlighting the key points of the Zha'rik alliance and the plans for an attack on Earth. As the information scrolled before them, the officers exchanged worried glances. This is catastrophic, one officer murmured. If they coordinate their efforts with dissidents, we could be facing a two-front war. Kane nodded gravely. That's why we need to act quickly and decisively. We must consolidate our resources, bolster our defenses, and ensure we have a plan in place before the Zha'rik make their move. Are we prepared for a full-scale assault? Another officer asked, concern etched across their face. The last encounter cost us dearly. We may have lost many ships, but we still have the crew and ingenuity that can turn the tide, Kane replied, determination in his eyes. Our mothballed fleet has shown us that even obsolete technology can prove invaluable against a more advanced enemy. We'll regroup our forces and train our personnel to adapt quickly. Torres felt a spark of hope as she listened to Kane's words. The resolve of her comrades was palpable, their spirits lifting as they considered the possibilities. They had faced insurmountable odds before, and they could do so again. Admiral, we should consider a preemptive strike, one of the officers suggested, leaning forward. If we can identify the locations of the dissidents, we can cut the Zha'rik off at the source. Kane stroked his chin thoughtfully. That's a bold move, but it could work. We need to gather intelligence on their bases and establish surveillance. However, we must be careful not to overextend ourselves. Could we leverage the mothballed ships again? Torres asked, her mind racing with ideas. If we can bring in more crew members and integrate them with the newer technology, we might have a tactical advantage. Kane's expression brightened slightly. That's a solid plan. The more experienced hands we can bring back into action, the better. We'll also need to gather intel from our informants on Earth. If the Zha'rik are indeed collaborating with dissidents, we may have allies who can help us. The room buzzed with energy as the officers began discussing strategies, their voices rising in a chorus of ideas and possibilities. Torres felt a renewed sense of purpose, the weight of the previous battles fading as they focused on the challenges ahead. Let's coordinate with our intelligence units and assemble a task force, Kane commanded, his voice cutting through the noise. We'll move swiftly and strike hard. We can't allow the Zha'rik to gain a foothold on Earth. After finalizing the details of their plan, the meeting dispersed, leaving Torres with a sense of urgency. She sought out her team, eager to discuss the next steps. Great job out there, Torres, one of her teammates said, clapping her on the back. You really pulled us through. Thanks, she replied, a modest smile gracing her lips. But it was a team effort. We all did our part. Have you thought about how we'll prepare for the next phase? Another teammate asked. We need to train for the possibility of facing the Zha'rik again. Absolutely, Torres replied. We need to adapt quickly, especially if we're using older ships. We'll have to come up with innovative tactics to counter their technology. As they brainstormed ideas, Torres felt a familiar sense of camaraderie enveloping them. They had fought together, bled together, and now they were prepared to do it again. Days passed as the fleet prepared for their next move, the atmosphere charged with anticipation. Training exercises were held around the clock, integrating the mothballed ships into their operations. Crews were brought in from across the galaxy, their expertise invaluable in preparing for the upcoming confrontation. On the eve of their mission, Torres gathered her team in their makeshift barracks. They sat in a circle, sharing stories and laughter, but the underlying tension was palpable. Tomorrow, we face the Zha'rik head-on, Torres said, looking around at her comrades. "Whatever happens, remember that we're in this together. We've faced impossible odds before, and we will do so again." "Together," her teammate echoed, raising a fist in solidarity. They all joined in, their voices rising in a cheer that resonated through the barracks, uniting them in purpose. As they prepared for bed, Torres felt a sense of determination settle in her chest. The next morning, the fleet launched into the vastness of space, a mix of old and new ships forming a formidable armada. The stars glimmered in the backdrop, a stark reminder of what was at stake. Kane stood on the bridge, his expression resolute as he surveyed the fleet. "Today, we take the fight to them," he declared. "We show the Zha'rik that humanity will not be broken." The ships moved in formation, each one a testament to human ingenuity and resilience. As they approached the coordinates where the dissidents were believed to be based, Torres felt a mix of fear and excitement. They were on the precipice of a new battle, one that would determine the fate of their world. "Prepare for engagement," Kane commanded, his voice steady. "And remember our training. Stay sharp and follow the plan." Torres took a deep breath, steeling herself for what lay ahead. The moment had come, and they would face whatever challenges awaited them together, united in their resolve to protect their home and fight back against the alien threat. The fleet glided through the void, each ship in perfect formation, their engines humming in sync as they approached the coordinates of the Zha'rik dissident stronghold. Torres stood at her station, her pulse quickening as the anticipation in the bridge intensified. Tactical displays flickered with information, mapping out the enemy positions while officers discussed strategies in hushed tones. "Admiral, we're nearing the target zone," Jax reported, his fingers dancing across the controls. "Sensors indicate minimal activity on the surface." Kane leaned closer to the tactical display, analyzing the data. "That doesn't add up. If the Zha'rik are collaborating with dissidents, they should be on high alert. Maintain a defensive posture until we gather more intel." The atmosphere on the bridge was charged with tension. Torres felt the weight of responsibility on her shoulders as she reviewed the mission parameters. They had trained rigorously for this moment, but nothing could fully prepare them for the chaos of battle. "Lieutenant Torres," Kane called, breaking her concentration. "I want you to lead a reconnaissance team. Assess the situation on the ground before we make our move. We need eyes on the target." "Understood, Admiral," she replied, adrenaline surging through her veins. "I'll gather the team and prep for descent." As Torres assembled her squad, she could see the determination mirrored in their eyes. They all understood the stakes. Failure was not an option. Each member had faced their fears, and now they were ready to confront the unknown. The small drop ship, the Aquila, was prepped for launch, and Torres climbed aboard with her team. She could feel the excitement and anxiety swirling around them as the hatch sealed, cutting off the noise of the bustling command center above. "Comm check," she said, ensuring they were all connected. "Let's keep the lines open while we're down there." "Clear," came the responses from her teammates, their voices steady despite the adrenaline coursing through them. With a lurch, the Aquila broke free from the mothership and descended toward the surface of the planet. The landscape below was barren, a stark reminder of the conflicts that had ravaged the area. Deploying landing gear, Jax's voice came through the comms as they neared their landing zone. "Get ready." The drop ship shuddered as it touched down, and Torres could hear the engines winding down. "All right, team, stay sharp. We don't know what we'll find out there." As they disembarked, the eerie silence enveloped them. The sun hung low in the sky, casting long shadows across the cracked ground. Torres led the way, her senses heightened, scanning the horizon for any signs of activity. "Let's split into 2 teams," she instructed. "A and B will cover different sectors. Keep the comms open at all times. If you spot anything unusual, report immediately." The teams moved out, the tension palpable as they ventured deeper into the desolate landscape. Torres's instincts were on high alert. She could feel the hairs on the back of her neck stand up. They navigated through dilapidated structures and debris, remnants of past conflicts littering the area. As they rounded a corner, the team paused, their eyes widening at the sight before them. "There," one of her teammates exclaimed, pointing toward a group of figures gathered near a makeshift encampment. Torres raised her hand, signaling for silence. They crouched low, observing the group of Zha'rik and humans engaged in a heated discussion. The Zha'rik soldiers were armored and imposing, their alien forms contrasting sharply with the ragtag assembly of humans. "This is it," she whispered, motioning for her team to focus. "We need to get closer without being seen." They inched forward, careful to remain hidden among the rubble. As they drew nearer, Torres strained to hear the conversation. The words were hushed, but she caught snippets of phrases that sent chills down her spine. "The strike must be coordinated. The fleet will never see us coming." Torres exchanged a look with her team, realizing the magnitude of what they were witnessing. This was evidence of the Zha'rik's planned assault, a coalition between the alien invaders and humanity's traitors. "We need to document this," she urged, pulling out her holo recorder. "This could be the proof we need to rally support back home." Just as she activated the device, one of the Zha'rik soldiers turned sharply, his gaze scanning the area. "Did you hear that?" he growled, his voice a low rumble. "Nothing here," a human dissident replied, though his voice trembled slightly. Torres held her breath, the tension mounting as the Zha'rik soldier moved closer, his weapon drawn. "I swear, I heard something. Get the others." In an instant, chaos erupted. Torres's team scrambled to find cover as the Zha'rik soldiers began to fan out, searching the area. "We need to move, now," Torres shouted, signaling her team to retreat. They dashed back the way they had come, adrenaline fueling their escape as the Zha'rik began to fire into the shadows. Blaster shots ricocheted around them, the sound deafening. "Keep moving," Torres urged, her heart racing as they navigated through the maze of debris. "Contact," one of her teammates shouted, catching sight of a Zha'rik soldier blocking their path. Torres instinctively raised her weapon, firing at the alien. The blaster shot struck true, the Zha'rik collapsing to the ground. "Go! We can't stop." They sprinted back toward the Aquila, the sound of pursuing footsteps echoing behind them. As they reached the ship, Torres scrambled inside, signaling for her team to follow. Get in, she shouted as they took their positions. The doors sealed shut just as a Zha'rik soldier lunged forward, his arm outstretched. "Launch," she commanded, her heart pounding in her chest. The dropship shot upward, narrowly escaping the chaos below. They ascended into the sky, the surface of the planet quickly receding beneath them. As they gained altitude, the adrenaline began to ebb, replaced by a wave of relief. "We did it," one of her teammates gasped, panting heavily. "But they're going to know we were there." Torres nodded, her mind racing. "We have to get this data back to the Admiral. It's crucial that we warn the fleet." The journey back felt long and tense as they navigated the stars. Torres reviewed the footage they had captured, her heart sinking at the gravity of the situation. The evidence was undeniable. The Zha'rik had infiltrated Earth, and they were plotting an attack. As the Aquila docked back with the main fleet, Torres and her team disembarked, urgency propelling them forward. They made their way to the briefing room, where Kane and the senior officers awaited their report. "Lieutenant Torres," Kane said, his gaze piercing. "What did you find?" Torres took a deep breath, preparing to lay out the evidence. "Admiral, we have confirmed that the Zha'rik are collaborating with dissidents on Earth. They are planning a coordinated strike against our forces, which could devastate our defenses." The room fell silent as the implications settled in. "We have footage of the meeting, and it contains critical information about their plans," Torres continued, passing the holo recorder to Kane. He reviewed the footage, his expression growing graver with each passing moment. "This is worse than I feared," he said, his voice low. "We need to act now. If they're planning a strike, we must prepare our defenses immediately." The officers erupted into a flurry of activity, discussing strategies and contingencies. Torres felt a surge of determination as she watched them spring into action. They had gathered crucial intelligence, and now they would use it to turn the tide. "We'll set up a defense perimeter around key locations," Kane ordered, his voice steady amidst the chaos. "We can't let the Zha'rik gain any ground on our planet. Prepare the fleet for immediate engagement." As the plan began to take shape, Torres felt the weight of their responsibility settle upon her. They were standing on the precipice of war, but she was confident in their abilities. They had fought through adversity before, and they would do so again. In the days that followed, the fleet worked tirelessly to fortify their positions, preparing for the inevitable confrontation. Torres trained alongside her team, honing their skills and devising tactics to counter the Zha'rik threat. On the eve of the battle, the air was thick with anticipation. Torres gathered her squad, feeling the camaraderie that had been forged through fire and conflict. "Tomorrow, we face the Zha'rik together," she said, her voice steady. "Whatever happens, remember that we are fighting for our home, our families, and our future. We will not back down." As they shared stories and reassured one another, Torres felt a sense of unity wash over them. They had come too far to falter now, and she was ready to stand with her team against whatever challenges lay ahead. The next morning, the fleet launched into the darkness of space, a formidable force ready to confront the Zha'rik threat. Torres stood on the bridge alongside Kane, her heart pounding in her chest as they approached the coordinates of the enemy. "Admiral, we're detecting Zha'rik vessels in the area," Jax reported, his fingers moving swiftly across the controls. "They're mobilizing." Kane's expression hardened as he surveyed the tactical display. "Prepare for engagement. We will not let them take our planet." The battle began in a flurry of activity as the two fleets collided in the vast expanse of space. Torres felt the adrenaline surge through her as she maneuvered her ship, engaging the enemy forces with precision and skill. "Target that Zha'rik cruiser," she shouted, coordinating with her team. "Focus fire." The energy of the moment was electric, the stakes higher than ever as they fought to protect their home. Every shot fired was a testament to their determination, their resilience shining through the chaos. As the battle raged on, Torres felt the weight of her responsibilities, but she was not alone. Her comrades fought alongside her, each one a beacon of hope as they pushed back against the encroaching darkness. The outcome of the battle would determine their fate, but Torres had faith in her team. Together, they would face the Zha'rik and emerge victorious, proving that humanity would not be broken. The cacophony of battle reverberated through the fleet as explosions lit up the darkness of space. Torres felt the intensity of the moment resonate within her, her focus unwavering as she commanded her team through the chaos. The familiar hum of her ship's engines surged with the rhythm of combat, every vibration a reminder of the stakes at play. "Regroup at my mark," she shouted, rallying her crew as they navigated through the chaos of damaged ships and enemy fire. The Zha'rik fleet was formidable, their sleek warships weaving in and out of formation with deadly precision. But Torres felt a fire igniting within her, a fierce resolve to protect her home. 3, 2, 1 mark, she called, and her squad pivoted, focusing their fire on a nearby Zha'rik destroyer. A volley of energy blasts erupted from their cannons, the shots striking true. The destroyer shuddered under the impact, returning fire with lethal intent. "Brace for impact," Torres yelled, gripping the controls as the ship rocked violently. Alarms blared around her, but her resolve only strengthened. They would push through this. "Engage evasive maneuvers," Jax commanded, maneuvering their ship out of the line of fire. Torres could see the panic in the eyes of her team, but she also saw determination. They were not going down without a fight. As they broke away from the engagement, Torres glanced at the tactical display, her heart sinking. The Zha'rik fleet was advancing relentlessly, and they were losing ground. "We need to regroup with the rest of the fleet," she said, urgency driving her voice. "We can't do this alone." The Aquila weaved through the debris, heading towards the coordinates where their main fleet had assembled. As they drew closer, Torres could see the chaos unfolding, the combined forces of humanity struggling against the Zha'rik onslaught. The battle was far from over. "Admiral Kane, this is Torres," "We're en route to your position," she transmitted, hoping for a response that would anchor her in the midst of the storm. "Roger that, Lieutenant. We need every available ship to hold the line," Kane replied, his voice steady amidst the chaos. "Your team is crucial for our flanking maneuver. Stay sharp." Torres's heart raced with adrenaline as she maneuvered the Aquila into position alongside other mothballed ships that had been reactivated for this fight. The sight of the battered yet resilient vessels bolstered her spirits. These ships, once deemed obsolete, were now humanity's last line of defense. "Form up with the rest of the fleet," Torres ordered, coordinating their position for the upcoming strike. As they aligned themselves, she could see the vastness of the Zha'rik Armada looming ahead, their ships brimming with the confidence of superiority. "Prepare to engage on my mark," Kane's voice came through the comms, a steady anchor amidst the chaos. Torres glanced around at her team, their eyes filled with determination and focus. They were ready. "Now," Kane commanded, and the fleet surged forward in a coordinated strike, unleashing a torrent of firepower. The space around them erupted in a kaleidoscope of energy blasts and explosions, the dark void like fireworks. "Keep your formation tight," Torres shouted, guiding her team as they dove into the fray. She felt the exhilaration of battle course through her veins, the pulse of conflict synchronizing with her heart. This was the moment they had trained for. The Aquila darted through enemy fire, dodging and weaving with practiced precision. Torres's hands moved instinctively over the controls as she issued commands to her crew, their synergy palpable in the face of danger. "Target that cruiser," she ordered, and Jax maneuvered the ship, lining up the shot. Energy beams shot forth, striking the Zha'rik vessel. It shuddered under the impact, but the enemy was relentless, retaliating with equal fury. "Shields holding at 70%, Jax reported, his voice steady despite the chaos. "Maintain pressure, we can't let up," Torres replied, her focus razor-sharp. She felt every moment stretch into eternity, the weight of their mission resting on her shoulders. Each Zha'rik ship they destroyed was a step closer to securing their victory. As the battle raged on, Torres noticed a pattern in the Zha'rik movements, a reliance on their advanced AI tactics. They were predictable, despite their technological superiority. "They're relying too much on their automated strategies," she observed aloud. "If we can exploit that, we can turn the tide." "Let's draw them into a trap," Jax suggested. "If we can feign a retreat, they might expose themselves." Torres considered the idea, her mind racing. "That could work. We'll pull back just enough to lure them in. Prepare to signal the rest of the fleet." As they executed the plan, the Zha'rik began to take the bait, pursuing with calculated aggression. Torres could see the change in their formation, their ships clustering together in an attempt to overwhelm the retreating humans. "Now!" she shouted, and the fleet shifted tactics, pivoting to unleash a concentrated barrage on the exposed Zha'rik ships. Energy beams shot through the void, hitting their targets with devastating accuracy. "Direct hits on multiple vessels," Jax exclaimed, excitement creeping into his voice. "They're losing control." Torres felt a surge of adrenaline as their strategy began to pay off. "Keep it up. Focus fire on their command ships, take out their leaders." The Zha'rik fleet, caught off guard, struggled to respond as the humans exploited their over-reliance on technology. Torres's heart raced with each victory. They were fighting back, defying the odds stacked against them. But as victory loomed on the horizon, an alarm blared from the tactical display. "Admiral Kane, we have a massive Zha'rik warship entering the battlefield," Jax shouted, his voice laced with urgency. Torres turned to see a colossal Zha'rik dreadnought materialize from the shadows, its sleek frame glistening menacingly. "It's too late to regroup. We have to face it head-on," Kane shouted through the comms, determination resonating in his voice. "Admiral, we can't take that thing alone," Torres protested, her heart pounding. "We have no choice," he replied, unyielding. "We'll distract it while the rest of the fleet engages the smaller ships. We need to take out their command structure." "Understood," Torres said, her resolve hardening. "We'll give it everything we've got." As the dreadnought advanced, the crew of the Aquila prepared for the fight of their lives. The tension on the bridge was palpable as they braced for impact. "Focus all fire on the dreadnought," Torres commanded, her voice steady. "We'll hit it with everything we have." The Aquila surged forward, weapons primed and ready. They unleashed a torrent of firepower at the massive Zha'rik vessel, the energy blast lighting up the darkness. The dreadnought retaliated, its own weapons firing with lethal precision. "Shields at 50%, Jax shouted, his hands flying over the controls as he navigated evasive maneuvers. "We're taking heavy damage." "Stay on target. We need to penetrate its defenses," Torres urged, her heart racing as they continued their assault. The Zha'rik dreadnought loomed before them, its imposing presence a reminder of the challenges they faced. As the battle intensified, the Aquila found itself in the eye of the storm, engaging the dreadnought in a desperate struggle. Torres could feel the weight of the moment pressing down on her, but she refused to back down. "We can do this, for Earth," she shouted, rallying her team as they pushed forward, their weapons blazing with defiance. The dreadnought fired again, its energy beams striking close to the Aquila, rocking the ship violently. Torres struggled to maintain control, but she felt a surge of determination course through her. "Redirect power to forward shields," she commanded, her voice cutting through the chaos. "We'll absorb the hits." As the crew scrambled to comply, Torres braced for the next assault. They were in the heart of the battle, and there was no turning back now. The fate of humanity rested on their shoulders, and she would not let them falter. "Engage the auxiliary thrusters. We need to get closer," she shouted, her pulse quickening as they closed the distance to the dreadnought. With a burst of speed, the Aquila darted forward, weaving through enemy fire as they focused all their firepower on the Zha'rik vessel. The dreadnought responded with overwhelming force, but Torres's team held their ground, their resolve unshakable. "Direct hit," Jax yelled, exhilaration in his voice as their shots struck true. "It's taking damage." "Keep pushing. We have to finish this," Torres commanded, her heart racing as they pressed the attack. As the battle raged around them, the tide began to turn. The Zha'rik forces, disoriented and vulnerable, struggled to respond to the relentless assault from the Aquila and the rest of the fleet. "Admiral Kane, we're making headway," Torres reported, her voice steady despite the chaos. "The dreadnought is weakening." "Good work, Lieutenant. We'll need to keep this momentum going." "Coordinate with the other ships and prepare for a final strike," Kane instructed. Torres felt a surge of hope as they continued their assault on the dreadnought. The tide was shifting, but they needed to finish the fight. "Prepare for the final strike. All hands, brace for impact," Torres shouted, rallying her crew for the decisive moment. As they closed in on the Zha'rik dreadnought, Torres felt the weight of history bearing down on them. This was their chance to rewrite the fate of humanity. The moment stretched into eternity as they readied themselves for the final engagement. "On my mark. 3, 2, 1, now," she called, and they unleashed everything they had. The combined firepower of the Aquila and the remaining fleet surged forth, striking the dreadnought with overwhelming force. Energy beams collided with its hull, the explosions lighting up the void of space in a dazzling display. The dreadnought shuddered violently, and for a moment Torres dared to believe they could win. The Zha'rik ships around them began to falter, their formations breaking under the pressure. "Direct hits. It's losing structural integrity," Jax shouted, his excitement palpable. "Keep firing. We're almost there," Torres commanded, her voice filled with determination as they pressed the attack. As the dreadnought began to crumble, the remaining Zha'rik ships faltered, their coordinated efforts falling apart in the face of the humans' relentless onslaught. Torres could feel the tide of battle shifting, the echoes of hope ringing in her heart. But just as victory seemed within reach, an alarm blared on the bridge. "Multiple Zha'rik ships initiating self-destruct protocols," Jax reported, panic rising in his voice. "Get us out of here," Torres shouted, her mind racing. "We need to warn the fleet." The Aquila surged forward, evading the impending explosions as the Zha'rik vessels detonated in a cascade of destruction. The shock waves rippled through space, the remnants of the battle sending debris flying in all directions. As the chaos settled, Torres surveyed the aftermath, her heart pounding in her chest. They had achieved the impossible. The Zha'rik Armada had been driven back, their dreadnought destroyed. "Admiral Kane, we've succeeded," Torres exclaimed, disbelief mingling with elation. "We've pushed them back." "Excellent work, everyone," Kane replied, his voice steady. "But we must remain vigilant. This battle is only the beginning." Torres nodded, the weight of his words sinking in. They had won a crucial battle, but the war was far from over. Humanity had proven its resilience, but the Zha'rik were still out there, waiting for their chance to strike again. As the fleet regrouped, Torres felt a sense of camaraderie with her fellow crew members, a bond forged in the crucible of battle. They had fought together, and now they would continue to stand united against the challenges ahead. "Let's get our ship back in shape," Torres said, determination shining in her eyes. "We'll be ready for whatever comes next." As the Aquila drifted among the remains of the battlefield, she knew one thing for certain: humanity would not go quietly into the night. They would fight, adapt, and rise again, no matter the odds stacked against them. Together, they would face whatever the future held. The aftermath of the battle left the remnants of the once mighty Zha'rik fleet drifting like shattered glass amidst the vastness of space. As the Aquila and the other mothballed ships regrouped, the realization of their victory washed over Torres like a wave. Yet, beneath the exhilaration was a stark reminder that the fight was far from over. Admiral Kane gathered the crew on the bridge for a debriefing. His presence commanded attention, a testament to the leadership that had rallied them in their darkest hour. The tension in the room was palpable as they awaited his words, each person acutely aware of the price they had paid for this victory. "Everyone, I want to express my gratitude for your courage today," Kane began, his voice steady. "We faced insurmountable odds and emerged victorious against a technologically superior foe. But our victory comes at a cost, and we must prepare for what lies ahead." Torres exchanged glances with her team, their expressions a mixture of pride and concern. The adrenaline from the battle was fading, replaced by a lingering unease. "What's our next move, Admiral?" she asked, breaking the silence. Kane's eyes narrowed as he considered the question. "We need to regroup, assess our losses, and understand the implications of what we've achieved. The Zha'rik are not likely to retreat for long. They'll regroup and come at us again, possibly with a more strategic approach." "Do we have any intelligence on their next moves?" Jax inquired, leaning forward in his seat. "We've managed to capture some Zha'rik communication devices during the skirmish," Kane replied. "Our analysts are already working to decode the information. We need to understand their hierarchy and any weaknesses we can exploit. The Zha'rik rely heavily on their AI, and if we can find a way to disrupt that, we may have a chance to shift the balance further in our favor." Torres felt a surge of determination. "If we can exploit their reliance on AI, we can create chaos within their ranks. We could use our tactics against them." "Exactly," Kane affirmed, nodding approvingly. "We need to train our crews to think outside the box. The Zha'rik are predictable when it comes to their combat strategies. We can use that to our advantage." As the discussion continued, Torres felt the weight of their victory settling in. They had won a battle, but the war was still on the horizon. She thought of her team, the bonds forged in the heat of combat, and the families waiting back on Earth. They had to continue the fight not just for themselves, but for everyone who believed in their cause. Once the meeting concluded, Torres returned to the operations room. The walls were lined with monitors displaying data from the recent battle, the vastness of the tactical landscape in bright colors. She studied the tactical readouts, her mind racing with strategies and possibilities. "Hey, Lieutenant," Jax said, breaking her concentration. "You all right?" Torres glanced up, seeing the concern etched on his face. "Just processing everything. We did something incredible out there, but it doesn't feel like enough." "It's only the beginning," Jax reassured her. We've shown the Zha'rik that we can stand up to them. They'll think twice about attacking Earth again." "Let's hope they do," Torres replied, a hint of doubt lingering in her voice. "But we can't rely on hope. We need to prepare for the worst." "Agreed. I'll start working on some tactical simulations for the crew," Jax suggested. "We should get everyone involved in thinking outside the box. If we can disrupt their AI, it might just give us the edge we need." "Good idea," Torres said, her spirits lifting. "Let's get to work." As they began to delve into the intricacies of the Zha'rik strategies, Torres felt a renewed sense of purpose. They would learn, adapt, and rise to the challenge, just as they had before. With every piece of information gathered, they would edge closer to understanding their enemy and, ultimately, securing their victory. Days turned into weeks as the fleet prepared for the next confrontation. The remnants of the Zha'rik ships were salvaged for parts, their technology studied and repurposed for humanity's needs. Torres watched as crews worked tirelessly, their spirits high despite the arduous task ahead. They were united in their mission, their camaraderie a beacon of hope amidst uncertainty. "Lieutenant, come check this out," Jax called, beckoning her over to a display filled with schematics. The layout showed a captured Zha'rik cruiser, its systems highlighted in vibrant colors. "I think we've found a weakness in their reactor core. If we can target it, we might be able to cause a chain reaction." Torres leaned closer, her excitement growing. "This could change everything. If we can create a diversion near their core, we might draw their defenses away from our primary attack." "Exactly," Jax replied, enthusiasm evident in his voice. "If we can disrupt their command structure with a coordinated strike, we could take out several ships at once." As they continued to strategize, Torres's mind raced with possibilities. They were developing new tactics, honing their skills, and evolving as a fleet. Every conversation, every simulation brought them closer to the edge they needed. "Let's put this plan into action," Torres said, a fire igniting in her chest. "We'll run drills with the crew to prepare for the next engagement. If we can hit them hard and fast, we may have a chance to cripple their forces." As the training commenced, the atmosphere on the Aquila shifted. The crew was invigorated, eager to prove themselves against the Zha'rik. Torres felt a sense of pride swelling within her as she watched her team work together, adapting and overcoming challenges thrown their way. The camaraderie that had developed amidst the chaos of battle was now a driving force behind their preparation. They were no longer just a motley crew of obsolete warships. They were a united front, standing against a common enemy. During one training session, Torres noticed Jax working alongside another crew member, honing their skills. She approached, observing their techniques. "Looks great, you too. Keep it up. Every shot counts in the next engagement." "Thanks, Lieutenant," Jax replied, determination glinting in his eyes. "We're ready for whatever they throw at us." Torres felt her heart swell with pride at the transformation they had all undergone. It was a testament to their resilience, their refusal to be defined by the limitations others placed upon them. As the weeks passed, the fleet received word from their intelligence division. "Lieutenant, we've intercepted Zha'rik communications," Jax reported one afternoon, his voice tinged with urgency. "They're regrouping and planning a new offensive. We need to prepare." Torres's pulse quickened at the news. "When is the attack expected?" "Within the next few days," he replied, scanning the data on the screen. "We need to finalize our strategy and get everyone ready. This will be their largest push yet." "Then we need to act fast," Torres said, her mind racing. "Let's call a meeting with Admiral Kane and finalize our approach." As they gathered the crew for the strategic briefing, Torres could feel the weight of the moment settling in. They were on the precipice of another battle, and the stakes had never been higher. Admiral Kane entered the room, his presence commanding attention. "We have confirmation that the Zha'rik are preparing for a large-scale offensive. They believe we are weakened after our previous battles, but they underestimate our resolve." Torres felt a surge of confidence as Kane continued. "We will implement the new tactics we've developed. Our goal is to hit their command ships and disrupt their coordination. If we can create chaos within their ranks, we can turn the tide in our favor." The crew listened intently, the gravity of the situation palpable. Torres exchanged glances with Jax, their determination mirrored in each other's eyes. "Lieutenant Torres, you'll lead the strike team," Kane directed, and she nodded, a sense of purpose flooding her. "We'll coordinate with the rest of the fleet to maximize our effectiveness," she said, her voice steady. "Together, we will show the Zha'rik that humanity will not be easily broken." With the plan set in motion, Torres felt a mix of anticipation and trepidation. They had fought hard to get to this moment, and now it was time to put their training into action. The crew sprang into action, preparing the Aquila for battle as the tension mounted. As the hours passed, the fleet began to gather at their designated launch point, a vast stretch of space where the remnants of the previous battles lay silent. Torres felt the weight of the mission on her shoulders, but she also felt a deep-seated belief in her crew. They had trained tirelessly, and now it was time to prove themselves. "Prepare for launch," Torres commanded, adrenaline coursing through her veins. The bridge buzzed with activity as the crew prepared the ship for battle. "Engines at full power," Jax called out, his focus unwavering as he coordinated the systems. "Shields up and weapons primed," Torres added, her heart racing as the final countdown began. As they broke through the atmosphere and entered the vast expanse of space, Torres felt the rush of anticipation in her veins. The Zha'rik fleet loomed ahead, a menacing presence ready to challenge their resolve. "On my mark, we'll engage," Torres instructed, her voice steady. "Let's show them what humanity is capable of." As they advanced, the Zha'rik fleet began to mobilize, their formations shifting in preparation for the incoming attack. Torres felt the tension building, the impending confrontation looming just ahead. "Steady, everyone," she reminded her crew. "Stay focused and trust in our training." In the heart of the Zha'rik formation, their flagship loomed, the hub of their command and control. This was their target. Taking it out could shatter their cohesion and disrupt their plans. "Now," Torres shouted, and they surged forward, unleashing a volley of fire. The Aquila shook under the impact of their weapons, but the crew remained resolute, firing shot after shot into the heart of the Zha'rik fleet. The chaos erupted, and the vacuum of space filled with explosions and energy beams as the two forces collided. Torres could feel the adrenaline surging through her, her instincts kicking in as she navigated the battlefield. "Engage target," she commanded, her eyes locked on the Zha'rik flagship as they approached. "We need to take it out quickly." As they closed in, the crew worked in perfect sync, their training paying off in spades. The Zha'rik were formidable, but they were also predictable, and Torres used that to their advantage. "Target their reactor core," she instructed, recalling the intel they had gathered. "That's our best shot." The Aquila maneuvered deftly, weaving through enemy fire as they positioned themselves for a clean shot. The flagship loomed ahead, its imposing presence a reminder of the stakes involved. "Firing now," Jax called, and the Aquila unleashed a powerful energy blast, striking the core with precision. The flagship shuddered violently, and Torres held her breath as the explosions erupted from within. "Direct hit. The flagship is losing power," Jax shouted, his excitement palpable. "Keep up the pressure. We need to capitalize on this," Torres commanded, her determination unwavering as they pressed their attack. Around them, the Zha'rik fleet began to falter. The chaos was palpable as their formations broke apart, confusion spreading among their ranks. Torres felt a surge of hope, but she knew they couldn't relent. "Stay sharp. We need to maintain our momentum," she urged, rallying her crew for the final push. As they continued their assault, the remnants of the Zha'rik fleet began to crumble. The tide of battle was shifting, and Torres felt a sense of empowerment as they fought back against their oppressors. "Admiral Kane, we're making headway," she reported, her voice filled with exhilaration. "Excellent work, Lieutenant. Let's finish this," Kane replied, his tone steady and resolute. With renewed determination, Torres led the charge, the Aquila blazing through the chaos. As they struck the heart of the Zha'rik formation, she knew they were making history. This was a fight for humanity's future, and they would not back down. The flagship continued to disintegrate under the weight of their assault, and Torres felt the adrenaline surging through her. They had become a force to be reckoned with, a symbol of humanity's resilience in the face of adversity. But just as victory seemed within reach, alarms blared on the bridge. "Zha'rik reinforcements approaching from behind," Jax shouted, panic creeping into his voice. "Brace for impact," Torres commanded, her heart racing. They had underestimated the Zha'rik's capacity to regroup. The new wave of Zha'rik ships surged forward, their weapons primed and ready to unleash chaos. Torres knew they were in for the fight of their lives. "Get us out of here," she ordered, gripping the controls tightly. "We need to regroup and reassess." As the Aquila veered away from the impending onslaught, Torres felt the weight of her choices pressing down. They had tasted victory, but it was clear the Zha'rik were not finished yet. "We'll come back stronger," she vowed, determination surging through her. "We've proven ourselves once, and we'll do it again." As they retreated to regroup with the rest of the fleet, Torres knew this battle was just the beginning. They would rise again, and this time they would emerge victorious. Humanity would fight for its survival, and together they would face whatever challenges lay ahead. The Aquila drifted among the remnants of their previous engagement, the silence of space a stark contrast to the chaos they had just endured. Torres felt the tension in the air as the crew regrouped and assessed their damages. They had struck a heavy blow against the Zha'rik, but the retreat had been a necessary move, a strategic withdrawal to prepare for the next onslaught. "Report," Admiral Kane's voice cut through the quiet, commanding immediate attention. "Shields are at 70%, and we sustained minor hull damage, but overall, we're still combat effective," Jax reported, his fingers dancing over the controls as he scanned the ship's systems. "Good. We need to strategize our next move quickly," Kane replied, his eyes scanning the tactical readouts. "The Zha'rik will not be far behind us. We need to leverage the advantage we've gained." Torres felt a surge of determination. "Admiral, if we can draw them into a tight formation, we can use our old ship's maneuverability against their superior numbers. The Aquila may be an outdated vessel, but we've learned how to fight in close quarters." Kane nodded, appreciating her initiative. "That's an excellent point. If we can bait them into a confined area, we can utilize our more agile ships to flank them and disrupt their formations. Let's gather our forces and prepare for an ambush." As the crew began to mobilize, Torres felt the familiar thrill of anticipation. They were fighters now, united by their experiences and determined to protect their home. She joined Jax at the operations console, where they mapped out their strategy. "We can set up a decoy to lure them in," Jax suggested, pointing to the holographic display. "If we position the Aquila and a couple of other ships in the asteroid belt, we can make it look like we're trapped." "Exactly," Torres replied, her heart racing. "Once they close in, we can hit them from all sides. The asteroids will serve as natural cover, and we can use hit-and-run tactics to take out their ships one by one." As they finalized their strategy, the crew worked quickly, preparing for the next phase of their battle. Each member of the team understood the gravity of their mission. It was about more than just survival. It was about proving that humanity would not bow down to alien oppression. "All right, everyone, listen up," Torres called, gathering the crew in the mess hall. "We have a plan. We'll be using the asteroid belt as cover to draw in the Zha'rik forces. Remember your training, this will be a coordinated effort, and we need everyone on the same page." The crew nodded, a sense of camaraderie palpable in the air. Torres felt a surge of pride as she observed their determination. They were ready to face whatever challenges awaited them. Hours passed as they prepared, and the atmosphere aboard the Aquila buzzed with anticipation. The crew double-checked their weapon systems, ran drills, and ensured everything was in optimal condition. Torres moved through the ship, motivating her team, her confidence bolstered by their collective spirit. Finally, the moment arrived. "Admiral, we've confirmed Zha'rik ships on the scanners," Jax reported, his voice filled with urgency. "Time to execute our plan," Kane said, his expression resolute. "Move us into position." As they navigated toward the asteroid belt, Torres felt her pulse quicken. The darkness of space loomed ahead, the floating rocks a maze that could serve as both their cover and battlefield. "Prepare to engage," Kane ordered, his voice steady as the ship entered the asteroid field. "Activating decoys now," Jax called, launching several small drones that emitted signals mimicking the Aquila. The decoys drifted deeper into the field, drawing the attention of the approaching Zha'rik fleet. As the Zha'rik ships drew closer, their weapons primed, Torres held her breath. "Get ready, everyone. Wait for my mark." The Zha'rik fleet entered the asteroid belt, their ships forming a loose formation as they pursued the decoys. Torres watched intently, her heart pounding in her chest. "Now, engage," she shouted, and the Aquila erupted into action. They fired volleys of energy blasts at the Zha'rik ships, taking them by surprise. Explosions lit up the darkness, the brilliant colors reflecting off the asteroids as the battle commenced. The Aquila darted between the floating rocks, using their agility to avoid incoming fire while targeting the Zha'rik vessels. "Flank them! We need to break their formation," Torres commanded, adrenaline surging through her as the crew responded with precision. The Zha'rik ships retaliated, firing wildly as chaos erupted around them. Torres maneuvered the Aquila expertly, weaving through the debris while coordinating with her team. "Two ships on our left, get ready to engage," Jax shouted, his focus unwavering. As the Aquila rounded a large asteroid, they opened fire, taking out the first Zha'rik vessel in a brilliant explosion. Torres felt a rush of victory, but there was no time to dwell on it. They had to keep the pressure on. "Push forward. We have to capitalize on this chaos," she urged, her heart racing as they advanced on another target. Around her, the crew worked seamlessly, their training evident in their every movement. The asteroids provided cover, allowing them to strike with precision before retreating into the rocky terrain. "More Zha'rik reinforcements incoming," Jax warned, his voice strained. "They're trying to surround us." "Change course. We need to break through," Torres commanded, redirecting the Aquila toward a cluster of asteroids where they could regroup. As they navigated the treacherous terrain, Torres felt the weight of the moment pressing down on her. They were fighting for their lives, but they were also fighting for the future of humanity. The stakes had never been higher. "Keep firing. Don't let up," she urged, the roar of battle drowning out everything else. Explosions erupted around them, debris flying as Zha'rik ships crumbled under their relentless assault. The chaos was exhilarating, the thrill of the fight pushing them all to the limits. But the Zha'rik were fierce, and they began to adapt to humanity's tactics. Torres could see their formations shifting, the alien ships coordinating their movements to counter the Aquila's agility. "Admiral, they're regrouping," Jax shouted. "We need to adjust our strategy." "Hold tight," Kane replied, his voice steady. "We can't let them take control. Push through their defenses." As they charged ahead, Torres saw the Zha'rik flagship at the rear of their formation. Taking out their command ship could turn the tide of the battle in an instant. "There, that's our target," she exclaimed, pointing toward the flagship. "If we can take it down, we'll destabilize their forces." With a renewed sense of purpose, the crew rallied around her, determination etched on their faces. They had faced adversity before, and they would do so again. "Focus fire on the flagship," Torres shouted, adrenaline coursing through her veins as they launched a concentrated assault. The Aquila surged forward, weapons blazing as they targeted the flagship's exposed hull. Explosions erupted, debris flying in every direction, but they pressed on, undeterred. "Push harder," Torres urged, her voice ringing out above the chaos. As they closed in on the flagship, the Zha'rik vessels around them began to panic, the coordinated formations breaking apart in their desperation. The tide was turning, and Torres felt a surge of hope. "Brace for impact," Jax shouted as a barrage of enemy fire rained down upon them. The Aquila rocked violently, alarms blaring as they took damage. Taurus gritted her teeth, forcing herself to focus. "We can't let up. Keep firing." With every ounce of strength, they pressed on, the flagship looming ahead like a dark behemoth. The Aquila maneuvered deftly, dodging incoming fire as they aimed for a critical strike. "Fire at will," Taurus shouted, and the crew unleashed everything they had, the ship vibrating under the force of their combined firepower. The flagship shuddered, sparks flying as the energy blast impacted its hull. Taurus could feel the shift in the air, the moment where victory felt within reach. "Direct hit, their shields are down," Jax reported, excitement bubbling in his voice. "Now, target the reactor core," Taurus commanded, her heart racing with anticipation. With a final surge of power, they unleashed a devastating blast aimed at the flagship's core. Time seemed to slow as the energy beam struck true, piercing through the ship's defenses. The flagship erupted in a brilliant explosion, fire and debris scattering into the void of space. Taurus felt a rush of triumph wash over her, the victory tangible in the air. "Victory!" she cried, a surge of adrenaline propelling her forward as cheers erupted throughout the Aquila. But the celebration was short-lived. As the remnants of the Zha'rik fleet began to falter, a new threat emerged from the depths of space. A massive warship, far larger than anything they had encountered, appeared on the horizon, its dark silhouette ominous against the stars. "Admiral, we have an incoming vessel," Jax shouted, his voice filled with alarm. "It's massive, much larger than the flagship." Kane's expression hardened as he assessed the situation. "Prepare for battle. We need to regroup and strategize immediately." The crew's elation quickly turned to dread as they prepared for the next wave of the confrontation. They had triumphed over the Zha'rik, but now a new enemy loomed on the horizon. "We've come too far to back down now," Taurus declared, her voice rising above the noise. "We'll face this new threat head-on, just as we have before." As they rallied together, the crew of the Aquila braced for what lay ahead. Humanity had proven its resilience, but the battle was far from over. The fight for survival continued, and they would face it together, ready to defend their home at all costs. The massive warship loomed before them, dwarfing the remnants of the Zha'rik fleet. Its dark hull glinted menacingly as it moved into position, its weapon systems powering up in a slow, deliberate fashion. Taurus could feel the tension in the air, a heavy weight pressing down on her as she exchanged worried glances with her crew. "Admiral, we need to get out of here," Jax urged, his fingers racing over the controls. "That ship looks heavily armed, and we're still vulnerable." "No," Kane snapped, determination lacing his voice. "We've come too far to retreat now. We need to stand and fight, not just for our survival, but to send a message to the galaxy that humanity will not be cowed." The crew buzzed with renewed energy, rallying around Kane's conviction. Taurus felt the same fire burning in her chest, a desire to prove that they were more than just survivors, they were warriors. "Let's regroup with the other ships," Taurus suggested, her voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through her. "If we can coordinate our attack, we might stand a chance against that behemoth." "Good idea," Kane replied. "Communicate with the fleet and set up a strategy. We'll need to work together to take down that warship." As Taurus relayed the orders, the crew moved with urgency. The remnants of the human fleet began to regroup, and they quickly established communication with other ships that had survived the initial onslaught. The Aquila was not alone. They were part of a united front, and together they were stronger. The larger warship shifted, its weapons trained on them. "Admiral, they're locking onto our position," Jax shouted, panic creeping into his voice. "Brace for impact," Kane ordered, but there was no time for fear. The crew prepared for the inevitable clash, adrenaline pumping as they readied their weapons. The first shot rang out, a powerful energy beam slicing through space toward them. Taurus shouted commands, maneuvering the Aquila deftly, but the sheer force of the blast rocked the ship, sending vibrations through the hull. "Return fire," Kane commanded, and the crew unleashed their weapons, energy blasts shooting toward the looming warship. The shots impacted against its hull, but the massive vessel barely flinched. Torres watched as the shields shimmered and absorbed the energy, their weapons ineffective against such a formidable foe. "It's no use," Jax exclaimed, his voice tight with frustration. "We need to find a weak point." Torres gritted her teeth, her mind racing. "We've studied their designs. They must have a reactor core, every ship does. If we can get to it, we can deal a devastating blow." Kane nodded, understanding her resolve. "Then let's move. Jax, plot a course to the underside of the ship. We need to get in close." The crew worked in unison, moving the Aquila into position as they weaved through debris from the previous battle. The looming warship fired again, but Torres remained focused, guiding them through the chaos. "Steady, steady," she murmured, her heart pounding as they neared the warship's hull. The thrill of the chase heightened her senses, adrenaline sharpening her focus. "Now," Torres shouted, and they maneuvered under the massive ship, cloaked in the shadows of its hull. "Prepare for boarding," Kane ordered. "We'll use the smaller ships to create a diversion while we penetrate their defenses. They'll never see it coming." As the other ships split off, creating chaos and confusion, Torres felt a sense of purpose settle over her. They had been underestimated before, and now they would show the Zha'rik just how formidable humanity could be. "Get us as close as you can," Torres commanded, her heart racing as they navigated the treacherous space beneath the warship. They approached an access port, a narrow opening leading to the ship's interior. "Here," Jax called, pointing at the opening. "I'll set up a boarding sequence." With quick movements, he activated the ship's boarding systems, the Aquila aligning with the opening as they prepared for a risky infiltration. "Prepare for impact," Torres shouted as they surged forward, crashing through the access port and into the dark belly of the enemy warship. The interior was a maze of corridors and chambers, flashing lights and alarms blaring around them. "Move, move, move," Torres urged, her heart racing as they disembarked, weapons drawn. They stormed through the ship's hallways, a well-trained unit, pushing deeper into the heart of the Zha'rik warship. The crew worked together seamlessly, taking down alien guards as they advanced. "Stay focused. We need to reach the reactor core," Torres shouted, leading the charge. After what felt like an eternity of running and fighting, they finally arrived at the reactor chamber, a massive room filled with humming energy and pulsating light. The reactor stood at the center, a swirling mass of energy contained within a protective barrier. "There it is," Jax shouted, pointing at the reactor. "We need to overload it." "Set the charges," Torres commanded, her mind racing as she calculated the best approach. "We have to be quick." As Jax and the others worked to set explosives, the alarms continued to blare, and the Zha'rik were beginning to regroup. Torres felt the tension in the air, a sense of urgency as time slipped away. "Faster," she urged, her heart pounding as they heard the echo of alien footsteps approaching. "We need to get out of here." With the charges set, Jax activated the timer, and they began to retreat. "Let's move," Torres shouted, leading the way back through the corridors. The Zha'rik were closing in, and as they sprinted, Torres could hear the shouts of the aliens growing louder. The adrenaline coursed through her, propelling her forward as they raced against the clock. "Cover me," she yelled, taking position at the entrance as the rest of the crew made their escape. "I'll hold them off." "Torres, no," Kane shouted, but she shook her head, determination etched on her face. "Go, I'll catch up." As the rest of the crew made their escape, Torres prepared for the onslaught. She fired her weapon, taking down the first wave of Zha'rik soldiers as they charged into the room. "Come on," she urged herself, her heart racing as she fought against overwhelming odds. Each shot was fired with precision, but the Zha'rik were relentless. Just as she began to feel overwhelmed, she heard the familiar sounds of her crewmates returning. Kane and Jax rushed back to her side, guns blazing. "We're not leaving you behind," Kane shouted, firing at the advancing aliens. "Let's go," Torres shouted, a surge of gratitude flooding her as they fought back to back. With renewed strength, they battled their way out of the reactor chamber, explosions echoing behind them as they raced for the exit. The countdown timer was ticking, and the corridor began to shake as the reactor threatened to overload. They reached the access port just as the first explosions rocked the ship, debris falling around them. "Move!" Torres shouted as they climbed back into the Aquila, adrenaline coursing through her veins. "Status report," Kane demanded as they secured the hatch. "We're set to launch, but we need to get out of here now," Jax replied, his voice strained with urgency. "Then let's go," Kane shouted, and Torres gripped the controls as they navigated through the chaotic interior of the warship. The ship was in disarray, and they encountered sporadic resistance as they fought their way back to the exit. The explosions grew louder, the countdown echoing in her ears as they made their way through the chaos. "Almost there," Torres urged, her heart pounding as they burst through the final corridor and emerged into the vastness of space. With a surge of relief, they boarded the Aquila just as the massive warship shuddered around them. The crew quickly began the launch sequence, and the engines roared to life. "Get us out of here," Torres shouted, and they shot forward into the vastness of space, the warship behind them beginning to break apart as the reactor overloaded. As they cleared the explosion, a brilliant flash lit up the void, the Zha'rik warship disintegrating in a spectacular display of fire and energy. Torres felt a surge of triumph wash over her, a feeling of exhilaration as they watched the chaos unfold behind them. "We did it," Jax shouted, the exhilaration palpable in his voice. "We took down their flagship and disrupted their entire fleet," Kane added, pride shining in his eyes. Torres couldn't help but smile, the weight of their victory settling over her like a warm embrace. They had faced impossible odds and emerged victorious, a testament to human resilience and courage. As they regrouped with the remaining fleet, the cheers echoed through the comms. "All ships, report in," Kane commanded, his voice filled with authority. One by one, the ships confirmed their survival, the morale high as they celebrated their hard-fought victory. "We've proven that humanity will not be defeated," Torres declared, her voice rising above the noise. "We are stronger together, and this is just the beginning." As the crew of the Aquila cheered, Torres felt a renewed sense of purpose. They had fought against overwhelming odds, and in doing so, they had forged a new identity for humanity, a resilient force ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. In the distance, the stars shone bright, a promise of hope and a reminder of their victory. They were no longer just survivors, they were warriors, defenders of their home and champions of their people. The war may not have been over, but they had proven that they could stand against any threat, united as one. With determination in their hearts, they looked to the future, ready to face whatever challenges awaited them in the cosmos.